Welcome back to another video on Elite Exotics Essentials. My name's Edward. The YouTube streets need me. So in today's video, I'll be talking about, I'm going to be reacting to 10 least honorable clone trooper deaths in Star Wars The Clone Wars. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, let's go.
Tech. My name is Alan. Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Recently, we did a video where we discussed the 10 most honorable deaths in the Clone Wars. Many of the clones we discussed in this video were famous, or at least fan favorites. But for every Fives and Hardcase, there were dozens of unnamed clones who died for the Republic. Since death is permanent, and in the case of the clones quite unjust because they were essentially born into servitude, we will continue to honor the fallen by telling their stories. Today we'll be looking at the 10 least honorable deaths during the...
That's true. The one thing with the clones is they're meant to be disposable. So even though in the Clone Wars they gave them like emotion, they flushed them out, character development. Either way, in the grand scheme of things, all they're meant to do is fight and kill the Jedi and be disposed of. Like nothing. Like they didn't serve much of a purpose, just to be breeded for war and to fight war, kill the Jedi, and they couldn't keep them around because they cost too much. So yeah. It's a sad, hard truth for the clones. But I still love them, though. Still love them. Okay, let's keep going.
Clone Wars, and although we might not remember the names of many of these clones, we will definitely remember the terrible ways that they died. Throwing a punch isn't just about throwing your arms around randomly. There's a technique and a lot of coordination required. It starts off down by your feet, works your way up to your hip and your torso, and finally up to your arm into your fist. Okay. This is why punching something is not necessarily easy, especially when you're trying to punch a battle droid which is made out of metal. And so when this unnamed clone of the 212th Attack Battalion attempts to punch a droid in the face, he clearly injures his hand. What's interesting here is that his adrenaline doesn't kick in, shielding him from that pain so he can continue to fight. And so instead of continuing to try to destroy the battle droid he's fighting, he pauses and gets shot. It should be noted that the clone does get his blaster rifle shot out of his hand in the very beginning of the sequence. It's very likely that he panicked once he realized he was no longer holding a weapon, which is why he tried to punch a droid in the face. Commander Cody understands the limitations of hand-to-hand combat. That's why he's running through droids with a flurry of kicks and rifle bites. If you do have to get into a melee fight,
I kind of thought, I don't know about him, because his blaster got shot out of your hand, which I wonder how you shoot a gun out of somebody's hand with another gun. That's interesting. And I don't know, maybe he thought, I don't know, because how did the Jedi be beating up these clones like hand-to-hand combat? Well, it's probably because they got the Force on their side, and the Force is like this mystical force of energy that they can use. So, of course, like when it comes to regular people, they're stronger, but yeah. Sad. Also, I'm trying to think that maybe, I don't know, just, some clones aren't the brightest. He just in the moment. He was too caught up in the moment, charging in with his gun and try to knock him out. It didn't work.
These are preferable methods. Unfortunately for our unlucky clone, he died without a rifle in his hand, which is a pretty dishonorable death if you ask me.
I like this music.
The Rishi Moon listening post might have been a relatively small operation, but it guarded the only approach to the Camino system, home of all the clones and the only clone production facility operated by the Grand Army of the Republic. Without Camino, the Republic would be doomed, and they would have no way to replenish their men. CT-327 was a deck officer on duty when a strange meteor shower impacted around the outpost. While on foot patrol, CT-327 is ambushed by a squad of commando droids who had hitched a ride on those meteors. After killing him, they steal his armor and helmet and use his appearance to impersonate their way into a base. One of our heroes in our last video about honorable clone deaths, CT-782 Heavy, manages to warn the Republic and sacrifices his life to save the day. CT-327's part of the battle is a lot less honorable. I mean, no one wants to be used like a sock puppet by a bunch of droids, but nonetheless, he was a part of the heroic defense of the Rishi listening post. Humans are...
Well, yeah, he will be remembered as one of the ones who were fallen in that tragic battle. But it will be more memorable if he went out fighting. In my opinion.
Supposed to eat plants, not the other way around. If you watch this channel on the reg, you'll probably be familiar with the world of Umbara and how it was a terrible place for the clones to be. It was perpetually dark there, it was very moist, there were carnivorous plants and turncoat Jedis. During the initial invasion, one of our heroes...
Oh yeah, the Umbara, like, story arc with the clones, like... Yeah, with the Umbara story arc with the Captain Rex and the clones having to, like, be... I'm trying to think. They're by themselves, and they have to deal with this strange general who don't like clones. With that battle, it kind of showed us a different side of the Clone Wars and the Jedi and clone relationship. How some Jedi, they was nice, they treated the clones like as people, as humans, and treated them fairly. There's some Jedi who viewed them as just like creatures bred in the laboratory. But that's how the one Jedi in the Force Unleashed Star Wars game, I've got his name, Coda, because he didn't use clones. That's why he didn't die in Order 66. He used regular humans. And I wonder how that worked in like any major battle when the humans had to work with the clones. That's like before Empire, because before the Empire, no, this is like a little after the Empire was established. They try to phase out the clones with regular humans, but the clones don't like humans because they know they're better and more engineered in battle than the regular humans, and humans view clones as just clones that out of date. They're not as good as they used to be. Humans work way better, but clones are better fighters. But yeah.
Our last list, Hardcase accidentally trips over a giant vine. This wakes up a giant Vixus, a large carnivorous plant with several tentacles, which are used to grab clone troopers, which are then shoved into its large, sharp, teeth-lined mouth. Hardcase never stops firing his Gatling blasters and manages to escape from one of these tentacles. But one of Hardcase's brothers in the 501st isn't all that lucky and gets latched onto by the monster's tongue, and he is quickly devoured. Fives finally manages to put an end to this thing's rampage by throwing a grenade into its mouth. Now, if that's true...
Oh, wait, but it was one line where Heavy said, "That's not right," and then he just kept shooting. And then Fives, saved the day.
Is still alive inside the plant, he no longer is, because explosion. Now, is getting eaten by a carnivorous plant dishonorable in itself? Does it make you less of a man? Probably not, but you most likely won't have an open casket funeral, which probably means that you did have a dishonorable death. An infantry soldier enjoys having both feet planted on the ground. They get scared when they're on boats or planes or spaceships. It makes sense. And that's because they're no longer in control of their environment and in control of where they are going. On the terrible world of Umbara, there are not only carnivorous plants, but there are also flying monsters known as banshees. Well, they're actually more like flying crab monsters, which makes them worse. Although these flying monsters are no larger than a dog, they're powerful enough to pick up a full-grown clone and fly away with them. They were a complete menace on the battlefield during the conflict and after, because they really liked going after corpses. While on the march towards their objective, the 501st, under the command of Pong Krell, run into a pair of these monsters. Two clones, including an advanced Recon Force scout trooper on an ATRT, get picked up by these monsters. Pong Krell manages to save one of the clones with some impressive force field attacks, but the ARF trooper is unfortunately never seen again. He'll most likely get marked off as MIA. He had a very dishonorable death. Probably got eaten alive in a nest of banshees. We're not quite done with Umbara yet because, again, it was a terrible place. Towards the end of the battle, as Republic troops surrounded the capital city of the planet, General Ponkrell decides to create
Yeah, Umbar was a it was a mess out there. You had a terrible general who also secretly was working for the Separatists. He didn't like clones. He didn't like clones. Wait 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So pretty much, Krill was a bad leader. He didn't like the clones. He was a bad guy. There was, what was it? There was a lot going on. The clones. There was some betrayals. Dogma. He betrayed his brothers just blindly following the general. Disagreements. They had to kill their own brothers at one point because Krell said that the clones that they were fighting, the 212, were commando droids, but turned out to be their brothers. Found out they was killing each other. Then it kind of scarred them. And then they had to go after Krell. They lost brothers. Then he realized that Krell knew about the bigger picture, the Empire, the end of the Republic. Yeah, and then it answered the question: what's going to happen to the clones after this war? Yeah. So let's keep going.
Havoc amongst the clone ranks. He sends out a message to the 501st and the 212 stating that Umbaran militia have captured clone trooper armor and weapons and were now pretending to be clones. Ponkrell then feeds the same coordinates to both units for the location of the enemy, and when they arrive, they begin firing at one another. The firefight goes on long enough that even mortars are called in. Several clones died in this meaningless firefight amongst brothers. This was a complete waste of life, and it's terribly sad to watch platoon leader Waxer shed a tear as he succumbs to his wounds. It's a most dishonorable death to die fighting your own brothers. When the Separatist superweapon known as the Malevolence started preying on the Republic Navy, entire fleets would go missing without a trace. The key to the Malevolence's destructive power was a gigantic ion cannon, which could disable any ship that got caught in its massive beam. Once the Republic naval ship was disabled, the Malevolence would just open fire with banks and banks of turbo lasers. It was a terrible situation and not at all survivable. The clones that were lucky enough to be near lifeboats would make it out, but these escape pods needed to be recovered ASAP as they had limited mobility and supplies. In order to make sure that no one made it back to Republic Command with information about the Malevolence, the Separatist Navy would employ teams of droids to mop up any survivors that were still around. When Plo Koon's fleet is destroyed, a pod of clone Navy crewmen are cut off drifting without power in their pod. These clones aren't wearing any Phase 1 armor, which can actually be sealed against vacuum. A team of B-1 battle droids equipped with thrusters and welders grab on...
Wait, they said the Phase 1 clone armor, the advantage it had over the Phase 2 armor was that it had life support. So that's why I think in the first season of the Clone Wars, you see Ponkrell, he pushes, that's how, the clones were able to survive with just their armor on, Phase 1 armor on, in space. But in Season 2, so let's say if you watch around Season 6, when they try to get Tup, the Separatists wanted to get more information about why Tup chip malfunctioned. That's why you see the clones who already have the Phase 2 armor have to wear, some type of support system attached to their helmet. That's why.
Onto this unfortunate pod. They crack open the front windshield, venting the clones into vacuum and to their deaths. This was an extremely dishonorable death that goes to showcase just how cruel this Clone Wars could be, especially when it comes to the treatment of surrendered combatants. We recently did a video about Separatist weapons designed specifically to harm organics and at the same time could avoid harming droids. The Republic also developed a similar weapon, except it only destroys electronics and keeps organics alive. Meet the Electro-Proton Bomb. This was an extremely powerful weapon that could generate a massive EMP, which could deactivate entire droid armies. During the Battle of Malastare, the Republic first demonstrated the awesome power of the Electro Bomb by stopping a large battle formation of droids. The explosion from this weapon was so great that it ended up creating a massive sinkhole underneath the battlefield. While the clones mainly escaped the damage of the electro-proton bomb, those caught in the area where the sinkhole opened up were abruptly dropped hundreds of feet down to their death, including this poor clone trooper piloting an AT-TE, which lost its power after being hit by an EMP. This guy never really made it a chance.
It looked like there was like more than one. It looked like two dropped down into the hole, so like two pilots, maybe a couple crew ship members. Okay.
And like a lot of these disarmable deaths, his body is probably not going to be recovered. He's probably going to be listed as MIA. The story of the 332nd was a tragic one. This detachment came from the famous 501st and were one of the most decorated and experienced units in the entire Clone Wars. They were also one of the few clone units led by a caring and competent Jedi leader. While Order 66 was necessary for some of the Jedi generals who got out of hand, Ahsoka Tano was no longer even a Jedi when her former comrades came after her. Ahsoka Tano and Captain Rex tried their best not to kill their former friends and allies, but the inhibitor chips in their brains...
Yep, Krell was evil. He needed to be exterminated.
...made them rabid in their pursuit. Ultimately, ARC Trooper Jesse would not only fail his mission to kill Ahsoka Tano, he and the rest of the 332nd would all perish after their Star Destroyer crashed into the surface of the planet. Ahsoka Tano and Captain Rex would take the time to bury Jesse and all the clones they killed, but their deaths were senseless, lacking honor, and completely avoidable.
I don't feel their death could have been avoidable. Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe if they killed Maul earlier, if they killed him earlier, and if Rex didn't hesitate, I'll say if he didn't give Ahsoka that information, he would have easily took her out easily, and maybe take out Maul, because Maul hallway scene was very intense and he was ruthless. Yes, probably take out Maul. Rex, if he just right away try to shoot at Ahsoka, I don't think she would have made it off alive. But she is very experienced. She's trained under Anakin. You see how creative, how tough, how durable. We see how cunning Anakin is. So I'd say it would have been harder to take Ahsoka out, but it would have been. I feel as if they had a chance. He's right, but yeah.
During the ground invasion of Ryloth, a small detachment of Republic troops under the command of Obi-Wan Kenobi preceded the main body of the invasion. Their mission was to take out key Separatist anti-air defenses that had already shot down an entire Acclimator-class assault ship with thousands of clones on it. The clones sent out several patrols into a deserted Twi'lek city. Ryloth is home to all sorts of dangerous predators, and the Separatist Alliance started breeding a very dangerous predator known as a Gutkur. Imagine a velociraptor that also happens to be a giant insect. The Gutkar proves to be a huge problem for the clones. Their weapons hardly seem to do any damage against the Gutkar's exoskeleton. Obi-Wan and his troops are forced to retreat. One clone is immediately knocked out and quickly consumed by the pack. Obi-Wan Kenobi manages to distract the Gutkars later on and saves everyone else. But now they're down one clone and his body has been chewed beyond recognition. It is a most dishonorable death.
Okay.
The Jedi rescue mission to the Citadel was supposed to be extremely, extremely challenging. Anakin Skywalker even refused to bring along his Padawan Ahsoka Tano for the mission because he believed that she wasn't ready. The Citadel was unlike any other prison in the galaxy because it was mainly created to hold rogue Jedi in place. A small team of Jedi and clone troopers are assembled for this mission. They'll have to be frozen in carbonite to sneak past the exterior prison defenses, and then they'll have to navigate a series of challenging obstacles and interior defenses to reach the prisoners they want to extract. Clone Trooper Charger, a member of the 501st Legion, was with the team when they began scaling a cliffside to reach one of the entrances to the prison. Charger was bringing up the rear when one of the stones that was supporting his weight broke off. This sends Charger plummeting into a river of toxic sulfur. But before he can reach that river, he hits an electro mine which kills him immediately and then sets off an alarm all around the base. His death was unlucky, and it really wasn't his fault, but it was also very dishonorable and endangered his fellow comrades.
True.
Okay, there you have it, guys. As you can see, the Clone Wars was full of awful moments. Very few people actually got the heroic deaths that they wanted. They were much more likely to die in some very terrible, tragic way that was either dishonorable to them, or embarrassing, or just all around terrible. So, you know, don't romanticize war. It's not a good thing to do. Also, guys, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation 10.
Yeah, war. Yeah. War doesn't... It's nothing to brag about. It's nothing good. It's sad. But yeah. Well, thank you. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Have a good day.